Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Kicks and Cup podcast. This is not an episode I wanted to do, not because of what I'm going to talk about, but because uh, social media is not a good place for me right now as a Liverpool fan. But yes, this is a Liverpool video, one more video. I know the last one I made was a shorter one. This is going to be slightly longer. So I hope you can bear with me. Um, and I hope you can hear my perspective. I promise to not be retweeting anybody. So the international break is here. And as someone who's always hated it when it comes to football, like club football and stopping, I've always hated that, but I am so glad for this break. Liverpool lost to Chelsea. That's three games in a row for the Reds, two in the Premier League, one in the Champions League. And we've lost all the advantage we had over Arsenal and actually are currently trailing behind them by 1 point, second in the league. So I'm glad for the break. I really am. And I never thought I would say that. Now, there is a lot to talk about in that game. In my last video, as I said, like we need to keep as much as we can the same and then wait for the new signings to bed in. And yet, Arne Slot decided to put Ryan Gravenberch in the back line for Konate and bring in Endo. So I know Konate is right now being assessed for an injury, which is not a good thing because center back position is already a problem for us. So we'll get into that. I've heard Arne's press conference, and like this video is going to talk about a lot of things, and I will try to keep it as streamlined as possible. So first, I want to talk about the game and the team performance, and then the individual players and manager and other things. I don't know this game, and this is not the first one, I think, in my opinion, but we looked so disengaged. We were not pressing. I think the way Liverpool links up and passes the ball around when we can, that looks good. Look, I think some of the missed passes come from the fact that the team needs to gel. There are several moments, okay, throughout the games in this season where a player passes the ball thinking that the recipient is making the run or something like that. Like in their head, they have a play and they're thinking, well, of course, the other one is going to think the exact same way, and they make that pass, but that doesn't happen. And so sometimes we lose ball because of those reasons. Other times it's just a poor pass, and then some others, like it's like I said, I'm so disengaged. Like you see a pass coming and you're just waiting for the ball to get to you, like, and then somebody swoops in and intercepts the ball. Like, why are we this passive? I don't understand. Are these the tactics? Because of the ball, I don't think we are pressing. There is no urgency in the team to go and get the ball. Now, it could be because of the intensity of games. Crystal Palace game took a lot out of us, especially that stupid formation in the first half. So did the Galatasaray game, and then Chelsea. Could it be because of that? I don't know. I don't think any of these questions were answered in the press conference for me, but there is a there is a passiveness in the team that I saw, particularly in the Chelsea game, maybe a little bit in the Galatasaray game. And I think if it is because of like the intensity, the fact that we have had to play so many games and everything, then this is on Arne Slot. Because there are options available to rotate one of the center backs and put in Gomez. You have plenty of options in the midfield, even in attack. Like, who is injured as of right now other than Leone? So if this is the reason, then I think it is definitely on Arne, because maybe he can make an argument that with his rotated squad, we might not be putting out our best team, but we would be putting out a team that has the energy to do something and will run and chase the ball, press for possession, drive the ball forward. And another thing is like a sort of lack of leadership and initiative. Like when we are defending our box, there's so many times one player is asking the other to mark someone, but no one's actually doing it. Like someone needs to be calling the shot, somebody needs to take accountability for that. Like I remember Curtis was pointing to Gakpo. Cody Gakpo was pointing to Curtis to cover someone. I think it was Kukurea. Curtis is asking Gakpo to do it again, and like nobody's actually doing it. Like why does it even need to be like assigned? Have we forgotten how to defend? Like man to man marking, we can't do that. I don't get it. There's no tackling. How are we giving Caicedo so much time to take that shot? He fakes it once and then takes a shot. Listen, Van Dijk in that instance is tracking João Pedro. What are the others doing? And I know Van Dijk is getting a lot of flack for it, but he's tracking his man. We all know how dangerous João Pedro can be. And Van Dijk literally made sure that he was never a threat at all. But where are the others? Konate, Gravenberch, McAllister, one of the fullbacks. Why is no one else tackling? And yes, Van Dijk is the captain and whatnot. And but like, would you not have criticized him if Van Dijk came out to tackle him and Caicedo puts the pass to Pedro and he scores? He's one on one with the goalkeeper. So I get it. We expect so much from Van Dijk and Salah, especially because they are the spine. We have seen them do it time and time again. But Van Dijk in that instant is making sure that he does not slip up and leave his man unmarked. Who is their striker? And the others need to do better. I will get into other players, but yeah, I have mostly covered Van Dijk here. Coming to like overall performance, I think these things seem like these could be tactical problems, could be an energy issue, could be motivation problem. I don't know what it is, and I hope that the space, like the break, is much needed for the player, and I hope that it is going to help. Now, I know that Arne talked about how many chances we created, but they were poor chances. I'm sorry, but that is not good enough. Chelsea had 12 total shots, we had 13. Chelsea had 6 on target, we had 2. 2 out of 13 shots is not good enough at all. If there were no goalkeepers, if there are no goalkeepers, we lose that game 6-2. That is simply not good enough. There is no point of chucking balls to the goal if you can't even hit the target. If you keep hitting the target, some might go in. One chance, maybe Sanchez makes a mistake. 2 shots on target, 90 plus minutes of game played. That is shit. It is not about the quantity, but also about the quality. And that is true for players. That is true for the football that we play. And I've previously talked about like how we need to understand whether something that the manager is saying, it is something that he has to say because PR and team morale and all that shit, or if he's actually being honest. The thing is, in this instance, I don't know which one it is. On the one hand, I can see why it is something that he has to say because of the recent results. Trashing the team when we have lost 3 games in a row, maybe not the best thing to do. On the other hand, fine margins is not cutting it for me for this particular instance and this particular context. These are not fine margins. The quantity may have been the same and could be stated as fine margins, but the quality of our shots is poles apart. And usually Arnett does call out player bullshit when it is either a win or draw. Like I've seen it last year, seen it this year too after the Southampton game. So I will give him the benefit of doubt there and hope that this is also something that the manager will talk about to the players. This as a standard is poor. It is really bad, and we cannot be having like, if you're only getting like 13 to 15 shots a game, you're not going to score and win games if you're only having 2 shots on target. So before we get to the players, like I will talk about the manager here since I've already brought him up. Look, I get it. We're frustrated. Three losses and whatnot, poor performances, and everyone is going for everyone's head. All of a sudden, last year's Premier League title is not because of Arne Slot, it is because of Klopp, which is insane that this narrative is even being talked about. I have seen a lot of proclaimed Liverpool fans saying Slot out. Like, can we remember our history? He improved player, he got Klopp's team, but we hadn't won the league with this team. We had an injury riddled season in Klopp's final year and we fell off in April. I'm not taking anything away from Klopp, but I will not stand for anything being taken away from Arne Slot as well. This is a rough patch. We won first 5 games in the league in the same way that we lost the last two. So if we did it to others, it can happen to us as well. And let's not forget the tragedies that Liverpool as a club has faced, okay? I'm not trying to milk it by saying it over and over again, but at the same time, we need to remember we lost Jota and this team, and that includes the players, that includes the manager, they're all dealing with it. And then we lost Matt Beard, the coach of the women's team, also very tragically. He was at Liverpool in Slot's first season. Now, I don't know how much both of them interacted. They had a relationship that we are not aware of, but that could be it as well. It could just be the shock of it. Imagine knowing that this person who worked in the same organization as you who was like literally working for the same organization up until the start of this season, like Matt Beard left Liverpool Football Club and went to manage Burnley women's team. And then a year later, like in just a couple of, not even a year later, like he was in he was with Liverpool, and then he takes his, I'm just trigger warning, he died by suicide. He takes his own life. Can you imagine the guilt, the sadness, the regret of it? Maybe we could have done something, maybe we could have reached out, maybe he did reach out and they were like, don't have time. Like, there's so many there's so many things that we don't see. Like, these people that we worship who make or break our weekend, these are real people. They do crazy things, they bring us joy, they give us something to cheer for, and they celebrate. They give us so much. Can we not hold some grace for them in this tough time? Can we not just let them be a little bit vulnerable, a little bit human? Can we stop expecting them to be perfect and immaculate every single time? There are so many things that we do not see. We get to see only an aspect of their lives. We get to see them put our club's badge and play for us. We get to see them manage our team. We get to see them answer questions in press conferences. We see them giving us some behind the scenes content, some training content, but it is a fraction of what their life actually is. Please remember that we have the luxury to forget, to not have a constant reminder that we have lost two of our own. They do not have that luxury. They still spend a significant amount of time in the same place where they were with the people who are not with us anymore. Even if, let's say, there's no visual reminder, okay, there are no photographs hanging around at Anfield, at AXA. There's no jersey of Jota. No, his locker room has been assigned to somebody else. Like, there's still the memories that remain. This is not eternal sunshine of spotless mind. Like, that is not like th- there is never going to be another number 20 in any any of Liverpool's team. Not the women's team, not the main team, not the men's team, not the under 21s, under 18s, no team at all. The number is retired across teams. So maybe let's calm the fuck down and cut them some slack a little bit, all of them. Are we seriously, like, I know Klopp got the club in a very different position than Arne Slot got the team. Like Klopp's first season, nobody would expect him to win the league in the first season. But let's not act as if Klopp never had his bad times. We never lost matches like this under Klopp. Like, let's not act as if this is something like just because we had like a pretty spectacular season last year, because this was a team that had been playing together for like for one season two. When did we get our midfield? Wasn't it in the summer 2023 window? Summer 2023. So 23-24 season, they played together. And then 24-25 is when we won the league. So this is a well oiled team that had been playing together for an entire season. And then Klopp left, Arne Slot came in, he tweaked some changes, and we won the league. But even in like even after, let's say, we won the 19th title with Klopp, I do remember there were some seasons where we were not what we were in the season before, like in the 2020 season. Like we were insanely good. 99 points. The season before that, 97 points. What was different? I wonder if it was the fact that that team had played together. They knew each other. So, like, oh my God, how are we acting this way? I don't understand this. Now let's get to the players. Okay. First player I want to talk about is Chiesa. I think Arne Slot is doing him a disservice, okay? He stayed to fight for his spot and he has done more than enough to start a game for us. Could it be that Arne Slot is treating him with so much care because he still has some concerns about his fitness? Maybe he's thinking he's kind of made of glass. He played the Southampton game, worked his socks off, then came on against Crystal Palace, and then wasn't included in the Galatasaray squad because of a niggle. Maybe Slot does not want him to get injured again. Could be. I mean, I said I did not believe it because this Chiesa is a lot different than the one we saw last year. Like, compare the Plymouth game last year and the Southampton game this year. The reason I'm saying that is because those are kind of the two games that we have seen him play like 90 minutes, close to 90 minutes. So there has been a change in Chiesa. He looks a lot more up for it now. So that could be it. But when we are chasing a goal, Endo over Chiesa, I don't think that's the best decision. That is one where I think Slot made a mistake because I'm just thinking what could have been the worst case scenario if Chiesa came on rather than Endo. We draw the game, take a point, we lose. I mean, we lost anyway, and our most informed attacker was on bench. The odds of us winning maybe could have been improved if Chiesa came on. So this one I will say Slot got wrong in this game. And it's okay, man. Like, mistakes can happen. Like, it is also a thing of like even Arne Slot trying to understand. Yeah, sure, we've signed a lot of good players, um, but even he has to kind of understand which players he can bring on who is going to impact in what way. Maybe Slot was at that time happy with the draw, and that is why he got a defensive um, signing, a defensive option rather than attacking one. But it's okay. We can give them grace to make some mistakes because again these people are human. So, but I hope going forward, I want him to start at least some games, even in the Premier League. Not for anything other than, like, even if it is just for rotation, okay? He's a versatile player. He can play left wing. He can play right wing. He can play false nine. He can play what 10 also. He can play through the middle. This is a good option that we can utilize, but for some reason we don't. And I really want to understand why. But I think as of right now, he's a better right wing option than Frimpong. So I hope he does get his chance. Now, Kirkis and Bradley. I don't know why every single game, one of our fullbacks has to get a stupid yellow card. Just unnecessary. I don't know why. See, I get that they're both young, but we have seen them play with much more of a calmer head last season. Like Kirkis for Bournemouth, Bradley for us. Like they were phenomenal last season. With Kirkis, I've said maybe he's trying too hard and he shouldn't get this reputation of a player who the manager cannot trust to make stupid decision and get like unavoidable cards that might see lead to us seeing a red that was just not needed. But Connor Bradley, I did not expect this from him in the Chelsea game. But could it be because he kind of now has to compete with both Frimpong and Zoboslai? Is that why? Is he like trying too hard? Maybe it's just somebody got into his head that one time, but or he's frustrated with the fact that he's been recovering from an injury and his availability in general has been a problem, was a problem last year also. So when he does get the chance to play, he's trying too hard. But if it is the competition thing, then like I think this Soberslai on right back movement, like this needs to stop. Like it is good to know that it is an option, but let's stop doing it, please. So like it could be a one off, but like hopefully going forward, I hope we see them being a lot more level headed and calmer than what we've seen. And I mean, like, it's not a with Connor, I can still kind of say that it seems like a one off, but it's not something that I expected. So, kind of caught me off guard. But yeah, hopefully, it is better. Now, Mohamed Salah. This is going to be a big one. So, before we get into the Salah discussion, I want to make two things very clear. One, I love Salah. I have a soft spot for him. I will go to the ends of the world to defend him. And second is the Chelsea game was one of his worst game this season. I think he was very wasteful and he was a little bit too selfish, especially considering that we were chasing the game. So he was poor in that game. And of course, he needs to be benched is the call from the fan base. Of course it is. Of course it is always. It is always that. Which I don't understand. Like, do you think Mo Salah just forgot how to play football after doing it for a decade? Like, or maybe he's just getting used to the new teammates that he's creating for, or maybe he's getting used to the fact that he won't have Trent's passes, so he needs to change the way that he gets involved in the game. Maybe the passes he's receiving are not in the best positions for him to be able to do something with it, at least in the way that he's used to doing it. Maybe there is just this unbelievably high pressure on him based on last season to do what he does best. Maybe he's grieving a teammate. I don't. There are so many things, and yeah, you can talk about his passing and this that, blah blah blah, but we will get to that. But I'll just say this: if you take out all the identifiers from his stats, if you just said that, oh, listen, there's a winger in a Premier League team who has played 9 games for the team across all competitions, has a total of 6 goals and assists across those games. Some people would hear that say, yeah, maybe could do more, but that's not bad for a winger. But because he's Mo Salah, it is not good enough. And it is so because we know what he's capable of. We have seen him do it, breaking records after records, grabbing games from the scruff of the neck and change it and have that one moment of magic and get us an equalizer or a win. We know what he's capable of, and he's not looking like the same player that we know him to be, that we saw him be last season. There is so much change in the team, and we will just sit and disregard everything he has done for the team the entire time he has been here. Fans are mad that he's not the star of each game. And these same fans, I'm sure, were celebrating last year when Salah was breaking records and winning us games. As for him being benched, okay, one could make an argument, but let's not forget what Salah does for this team and has done for this team. Yes, he's capable of these magic moments, and yes, we haven't seen them yet this season, but he has earned the right to be on the pitch because he has that credit in the bank. Because statistically, you would put your money on Salah to have a magic moment. Look at the first 5 games. We have had some others step up, but not consistently. If there was one player who was winning us those games, I could maybe concede the point. It is not just about Salah's capability to have that moment, it is about how he has done it consistently and how he has been efficient. And so, yes, he did have a poor game, but again, why are we writing Salah off? How many seasons have football fans done it in general? His worst season for Liverpool was 19 goals. Let that sink in. That's his worst. 19 goals is his worst season. That is who Salah is. He delivers. He's done it time and time again. We can let some games pass by when he's not at his best. Even last year, okay? Even last year when Salah hits his dip, no one ever asked why no one else is stepping up. Why is Diaz not creating? Why is Gakpo not creating? Why is Nunes not doing anything? Why is Soboslai, McAllister, Jota, rest in peace, but nobody else stepped up? Why are we not scoring more from set pieces if Salah is not able to influence games? Nope, it was all about how Salah is not doing enough. Salah is not doing enough. Salah is having a bad game. Salah has not done enough to win us the games when he has carried us throughout the entire season. And come January, when was it? March, when we lost to PSG and everything. This is the narrative. This is, oh, we haven't been good since March because Salah has not pulled his weight. What have the others done? He had 29 games. Who was the second highest goal scorer for Liverpool last season? I think it was Gakpo or Diaz. But how many? They were not 20 plus. I don't think we had another 20 plus goal scorer in our team last season. That man carried us, and I'm just talking about the Premier League. I'm not even, yeah, I mean, I don't think he was too, like, he did not score a lot of goals in other competition, but he absolutely did. The Carabao Cup and the Champions League, maybe not as many as we have seen him do in the league, but he did. He got what, 18 assists last year? 18? Who was our second highest assister? It was Trent. Do you know how many he had? 6. Salah created 3 times more, and still from March it is only about the fact that Salah did not do enough. Why are we not questioning others? Why are we not questioning others? It is not enough that Salah has already had record breaking. He was literally breaking records game after game after game. But all the conversation has just been about how Salah has not pulled his weight. And what have the others done? The title was more or less wrapped. Why did nobody else step up in that PSG game? Why did nobody else step up in the Newcastle game, in the Carabao Cup final? And yeah, oh, but Salah should have been benched, then somebody else could have been come on in his place. Well, nobody else was stepping up. Statistically, that season, Salah had the credit in the bank to be like, he will still be capable of creating a magical moment. Take somebody else out and put in Elliot, put in Chiesa. I mean, irrespective of whether or not, like, it's not like Cody Gakpo can't create. It's not like Luis Diaz can't do anything. It's not like Darwin Núñez can't do anything. It's not like Zoboslai can't hit a ball. It's not like McAllister can't do it. Nobody else stepped up. Nobody else throughout that entire season. Think about the Newcastle game away at St. James's Park. Think about, so many Aston Villa game. Think about the Brighton game. So many times Salah. Think about the Southampton game when we came back from the, what do you say, from the international break. But it is all about how Salah did not maintain the same standards that we saw him from August until March. We saw him with these standards, and then he slowed down a little bit and wasn't able to influence it the same way. And it was all about what we are owed, because Salah is capable of that. So, of course, he is supposed to be that player, and so he is supposed to. We are entitled. We are entitled to have a Mohamed Salah masterclass every single game. Why? Aren't you worried that the team is too dependent on Salah? Weren't you worried last season that the team is too dependent on Salah? So you should be happy. You should be happy. You should be questioning, why is nobody else stepping up? Yeah, okay, Salah wasted a couple of chances that Woods created for him. And I've already said that the Chelsea game was not good for Salah. What did others do? Isak, Ekitike, Gakpo. What did they do? What did they do? It's not just in this season. This is what I'm saying. Everybody is like, bench Salah, we don't need Salah, we need to not be as dependent on Salah. Who is going to do what? You think that one player not being able to play at his 100% is the problem that we are not winning games? He's the problem. Like, literally. And we are totally disregarding the fact that he was good in the Atletico Madrid game. He was good in the Everton game. He's bound. He's human. We've seen him do superhuman things. We've seen him do things that we just don't imagine somebody doing, the kind of output that he has. And we're just like, no, but Salah needs to do more. So you can all talk about, the bells and whistles, the eye test, the dribbles and this and that and all the other shit that you might use to kind of tear into Salah. Last year he scored and he created when we needed it, and that is what wins us the games. I don't care how many fucking tricks and dribbles and whatever fucking legwork you can do. If nothing comes of it, there's no point. What wins us games is how many times we put the ball in the back of the net. And Salah did that last season. And yes, he's slow a little bit, but it is time for others to step up. This is possibly Salah's last contract for us. Possibly. I don't think he renews again, or I don't think Liverpool renews again, because there is going to come a time when we have to play without Salah. So this is a good opportunity for us to not be that dependent on Salah. But because nobody else is stepping up, because nobody else is showing that they can consistently be that person who is going to create that magical moment, who is going to influence the game in that way, there's no point. How many shots out of the 13 did Salah take? So what of the others? What of the others? Why didn't the others also have better shots? So there are a lot of things that need to be talked about, and all this bullshit about Salah needs to be benched. We know what he's done for us, this, that, blah, blah, blah. When we are in trouble, Salah has saved us. And that is why he stays. Even when he's not having the best game, he still has the capability to have that one magic moment. That is why Salah stays. You might not like it. But somebody needs to do it. And maybe, listen, I will hear the argument that maybe Chiesa is that person. Chiesa can come in other places also, which will come to it, because I have to talk about Gakpo, okay? I have to be honest. Gakpo hasn't been the best, but he has still produced goals and assists, okay? The Ekitike Gakpo link up in the first couple of games was unbelievably good. That link up was also in the what do you say, which game, the Bournemouth game, the Newcastle game. They were good. They got us in lead. Now, see, the rotation with the striker could be a problem, but it's not like Gakpo and Ekitike have not been on the pitch together since those games. But as much as a lot of it can be attributed to all the problems with the tactics and changes and whatnot that I've already talked about, the thing that irks me the most about Cody Gakpo is how he has this one move. Okay, he'll get to the edge of the box, cut inside, and shoot, which is good, and we've seen him score some goals that way. It is a very quintessentially Cody Gakpo move, but he does it irrespective of how many players are in front of him. Burnley game, 3 defenders in front of him, and does it over and over and over again. Why? Try something else. If there are multiple bodies in front of you, what is the point of doing it and losing the ball? Maybe our team gets the second ball, or maybe the opponent launches a counter attack. Like, try something else. That's what I want to say about Cody Gakpo. And maybe if Chiesa needs to be given time, he can come on as a left winger. Arne Slot did not want to get another left winger because they wanted Rio Ngumoha to be the. Then Rio needs to be used. Rio then needs to have the same role as Luis Diaz would, because if these were the performances, we would have seen games where Diaz would have started. These would have been the games where we would have seen Cody Gakpo come off and Rio Ngumoha come on. So I'm just saying. And also in respect to this, okay, now that I've mentioned Luis Diaz, the whole Diaz should not have been sold. He's doing so well at Bayern. If he had to sell a left winger, it should have been Gakpo. Is only playing because of Dutch buyers. Stop this, please. Stop this. Diaz wanted to leave. He wanted to leave. We are missing Trent. He wanted to leave. Diaz, I can maybe concede that maybe Liverpool could have tried to get him, give him a better contract. But we tried so hard to make Trent stay. He wanted to leave, so did Diaz. So why are we still lamenting and sucking off players who did not want to be at our club? Why? No player is bigger than the club, right? So why are we pissing on our current players and crying and cribbing about the fact that these players who did not want to play at Liverpool left Liverpool? Didn't we spend the entire summer transfer window telling Newcastle fans the same thing when it came to Isak? So why are we different? Listen, I'm happy for Diaz. He got the move that he wanted, and I'm happy he's doing good there. I have no problems with him. I want nothing but the best for him. But the argument that Cody should have been sold instead of him, first off, we went into the summer transfer window with no intention of selling either of our left wingers. We were happy with not selling either of them. Diaz wanted to leave. So does wanting to stay and play for Liverpool not count for anything anymore? And did live and like as for Luis Diaz's performances, okay, what is it, like 9 GA in 10 games played for Bayern Munich? Good for him. But his best season for Liverpool was 17 goals. What stopped him from doing? Why wasn't he able to put up those numbers at Liverpool? Like 10 games, ever since Luis Diaz joined us, has he done consistently this thing for us? Has he had this kind of GA consistently at Liverpool? It's almost as if, different leagues will see players performing differently, and he's playing for a team that in the league that they are playing in, since the 2012-13 season, have won it every single time other than that one season where Xabi Alonso and Bayer Leverkusen won it. So yeah, good for him for getting the money he wanted, getting the goals that he's getting. I'm happy for him, but because I see a lot of hate for him when Bayern signed him from their fans, I think he might have maybe won their hearts now. So I'm happy for him. And look, I understand. Like again, with these players who've gone, okay, Trent again was hugely important to Liverpool, but he made his decision. And Liverpool fans have their own opinions about him, so I'm not going to get into it. But our club tried hard through everything at him, barring I think the least to Anfield, to get him to stay. He wanted to leave and he left. So yes, we can recognize the problem it leaves us with. But this rhetoric that we shouldn't have sold a player that didn't want to be here is just plain stupid. We lost Trent and we got a player who is going to be the creative outlet for us now. And it is not going to be from the right back position. That is what we have to figure out. What is done is done. Stop sounding like salty bitches on the internet pining after someone who does not want us. And with people who want like a slot out, FSG out, Hughes and Edwards, shit. Like I hope you did not celebrate with us last year, because Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards are the ones who got the slot appointment also. I hope you weren't around going around shit talking your friends who are rival club supporters when we signed Words, when we signed Ekitike, when we signed Isak, and literally every other player that we got this summer. So we win together, we lose together. So if you do act like a smug asshole when we are on a high, sure as shit better say something positive and constructive when we are going through a rough patch, or just shut the fuck up. It is frustrating when I see our own fans reaction to our performances. Apparently, Kelleher should have said it because Mamardashvili couldn't save the Caicedo goal. Everyone who did not want to be here should still be here. Everyone knew we got to replace is not good enough. How have these fans who have supported the club for longer than I have sustained themselves? They must have seen so many players come and go. Is that why I always see football fans angry all the time? It's not even just a Liverpool thing, it's most clubs. I feel like there's something wrong with me. Like maybe I don't know how to be a football fan because I've never had such a visceral reaction. I cannot imagine having a reaction like this. I feel sorry for these people that they have been consistently, constantly this angry for an entire week. I mean, thank fucking God we won a title last season. At least they were happy for some time. Oh my God, like, I'm not the most technical person when it comes to football, okay? I enjoy watching my team. I don't get into tactics, in depth stat analysis, underlying numbers, and their interpretations, and all the other shit that apparently everybody sitting in the comfort of their homes is better than the manager who's being paid the big bucks to do. Okay, I can just bring my perspective to it. I've literally not been on YouTube since the Crystal Palace game. Not because I cannot take it when I dish it out, but because I don't hear any nuanced discussion on everything. It is always an extreme reaction. Bench every player, fire the manager. It is not about how. It is always just about like everyone is the worst, the team is shit, the manager is shit, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. Like, I'm not sitting here on a high horse because I'm not doing the same thing. I'm just putting a different side, my side, the way I enjoy football, and maybe find others who see football my way. For me, football is about this club, the players it has, the people that work together to bring us success. And so that's all I'm saying. I mean, you call it woke nonsense, game's gone. Like, you can imply I'm sensitive, football is manly, strong testosterone. Okay, maybe, but I don't think anybody has a monopoly on how football is enjoyed. So, I mean, I will share my thoughts, and but I will not do it the same way others do. So, but even because like even though I'm as sad and frustrated as any other fan, I'm not as angry as I've seen other fans be. 3 games is all it took. You'll never walk alone. These words, they mean something. I live by them. Like the song invokes something in me. It's a rough patch. we are going through so much. It's a storm our team is going through. They need our support right now more than ever. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky. So we'll get there. I literally needed that because like I just want to say these things out loud so that I'm not just constantly thinking about it in my head. And so now I'm done. I am glad there's an international break for another 11 days. I am going to be happy. The fact that I don't want to go on YouTube and hear things that are just reactions and I don't even know. There's so much time that I have to do things that I'm going to enjoy. And come the next weekend when football is back, I'm going to support my team. I'm going to start supporting my team again. It's going to be a very important match because it is against Manchester United, but it's a home game. So I am kind of a little bit more hopeful. Um, I I hope that none of our players get injured during the international break, and I hope that we get to see some positive results. And I hope that you all have a lovely day and a good international break. Until next time, bye.